Welcome to the pilot episode of Cleveland Sports Report. Today I'll be talking about the Cleveland Indians, the Cleveland Browns, and the brand new Cleveland Cavaliers. Starting off with the Indians, talking about the week of April 27th. The Indians on April 27th. The Indians had won 6 games in a row. They got off to a rough start, going 1-5. And working their way up to 2-6 before their winning streak started. After having won 6 in a row, they traveled to Minnesota. Taking on the Twins. At this point, Dean Chance got the start. In fact, this on April 27th in Minnesota, Dean Chance took on Louis Tiant, two pitchers who were traded for each other. The Indians think that Chance still has something left in the tank, and as being an Ohio native, thought he might get some fan support. And so far, it seems like he has. He pitched 6 innings, gave up 5 runs. Got a no decision. He left the game after 6, with Minnesota leading 5-3. Then in the 8th inning, Ray Fosse hit a home run, his fourth of the year, which got the Indians to within 1 run. And then in the top of the ninth, the Indians scored 2 runs, driven in by Chuck Hinton and Fosse. Fosse drove in 3 runs, went 3 for 5 that day, drove in 3 runs. And the Indians ended up winning 6-5 with Phil Hennigan pitching well in relief. He's been having a good season so far. And their closer, Dennis Higgins, getting his second save. Higgins got through the 9th inning. He gave up 1 hit and 1 strikeout. He only threw 10 pitches, 9 of which were strikes. The Indians faced 3 pitchers from Minnesota, each who played for the Indians at times in the past. Louis Tiant, Stan Williams, and Ron Peronowski. For the Twins, Rich Reese went 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs, and Leo Cardenas hit a home run. Spoiler alert that Leo Cardenas is a future member of the Cleveland Indians. Now, the following day, Cleveland beat Minnesota 6-3. Vada Pinson went 2 for 5 3 RBIs. Pinson got off to a slow start with the bat, at least for hitting for average. But today he hit his sixth home run. Drove in 3, he has 17 RBIs. Ray Fosse drove in 2, he has 15 RBIs. Barry Moore was the winner for Cleveland. ZRA isn't that all that good, but this was his third win of the year. Brant Alia of Minnesota went 4 for 5. Chuck Hinton was 3 for 5 for Cleveland. And Jim Perry was a losing pitcher, another former Indian. This made it 8 games in a row that the Indians won. Then the next day was Steve Hargan against Jim Cott. Cott left the game with an injury, so the Twins had a scramble, sitting in Tom Hall, Stan Williams, Ron Peronowski, and rookie Bill Zepp to pitch, while Steve Hargan pitched 8 solid innings, giving up 4 runs. Going into the ninth inning, the Indians were down 4-3. And in the ninth, Pinson led off with a single. Took second on a wild pitch. Went to third on a fielder's choice. Eddie Leone walked. And then an error by, let's see who made the error. Mendoza, defensive replacement, led to the Indians tying the game. It's going into the 10th inning with the score tied 4-4. The Indians with 2 outs and runners on first and second. Greg Nettles, former Twin, who's been struggling a little bit with the bat, doubled home 2 runs, and the Indians went into the bottom of the 10th, leading 6-4. Reliever Mike Paul had been pulled for a pinch hitter. Paul had pitched 1 inning, striking out 2. And Dennis Higgins came in to pitch. And he just couldn't get it done that day. Tovar singled. Oliva singled. Runners on first and third. Allison struck out for first out. Running grounder hit the base runner, Tony Oliva. So he's credited with a single, and Oliva was out. 2 outs, runner on third. Runners on first and third. The Indians are up by 2 runs. And Rich Reese singled, scoring Tovar, cutting the Indians' lead to 6-5. Cardenas walk, loading the bases, and then Rod Carew pinch hit and grounded a single into right field, scoring Rennick and Reese. So Higgins was unaffected. Sorry, he was inefficient, and the Indians' losing streak or winning streak was at an end. Both teams finished this game with identical records of 10-7. Then the finale in Minnesota featured Sam McDowell against Ken Boswell. McDowell's been having kind of an up and down season. One appearance he'll be lights out, and the next appearance he struggles. This time went the he pitched a complete game. He gave up 10 hits, 3 runs, 1 home run to George Mitterwald. Struck out 6, but Boswell and then Stan Williams and Ron Peronowski held the Indians to 1 run. So Minnesota wins 3-1. As Cleveland moves on to Kansas City, playing at Municipal Stadium, a ballpark where Cleveland has never played well, even going back to the days of the Kansas City Athletics. Kansas City Athletics were a terrible team, but Cleveland always had trouble with them. This game between Rich Hand and Bob Johnson starting out is a scoreless tie after 9 innings. 10th inning, neither team is able to do anything. Then in the 11th, the Indians are able to load the bases, but Vada Pinson hit a fly ball to the deepest part of left center, but they pulled it in. Kansas City loads bases in the bottom of the 11th with 1 out, and L. Severson grounds a second. Eddie Leon throws him out at the plate, and Duke Sims throws him out at first for a double play. Both teams had bases loaded in the 11th. Neither could score. So in the 12th inning, the Indians finally break it open. Bases loaded, 1 out. Larry Brown walks, scoring the first run of the game. Former Indian Mike Hedlund comes in to pitch. Chuck Hitton singles, scoring Ted Ford. And then Roy Foster hit a sacrifice fly. Go to the bottom of the 12th. Cleveland's up 3-0. Dennis Higgins comes in to pitch, and again he has trouble. Bob Oliver singles. Paul Shaw doubles to right center. So there's runners on second and third. Nobody out. Joe Keogh pinch hits and singles, scoring Bob Oliver. It's 3-1. Dick Ellsworth comes in a pitch. Carl Taylor hits a deep fly down the right field line, scoring Shaw on the sacrifice. Cleveland 3, Kansas City 2, but Ellsworth is able to get the last two batters. So Cleveland survives the day to win 3-2. It was Higgins' second rough outing in a row. And then the next day is Barry Moore against Wally Bunker, and the Indians have a fairly easy 4-1 win. Eddie Leon homers, Duke Sims homers. So at the end of the week, Cleveland's record is 12-8. Cleveland's been a surprise so far this year. Their winning streak catapulted them from last place to second place. Well, right now they're only behind Baltimore. And I don't know that anybody in Cleveland is seriously thinking about pennant contention, especially against Baltimore. But after the terrible 1969 season they had and the letdown of the Cleveland Browns season last year, the Indians are pretty popular in the city right now. And all this is despite they're just saddled with injuries right now. Ken Harrelson broke his ankle in spring training. He thinks he'll be out until the end of June. But the team officials don't seem to be as optimistic as he is. And they've got, counting Harrelson, they have 6 players on the disabled list right now. 4 of them were projected to be everyday players. One was projected to be either in the pitching rotation or middle reliever, and one was a rookie who was sitting on the bench right now. Ted Eulander, the new center fielder who came over from Minnesota, he's out. Tony Horton, the first baseman, he's out, which is ironic because last year Tony Horton played in all but one game. And if it were up to him, he would have played in that game. Melvin Dart just wanted to give a younger player a look. Jack Heidemann, their rookie shortstop, he's out. He had a very short look last year, and then his military unit called him up, and he applied for a waiver to start his military training after the season ended or later in the season, and it was denied. So he spent the entire season last year with the Texas National Guard. Also, bench is Russ Nagelson, a rookie, and then they had to play Steve Hargan on the disabled list. Hargan had pitched in 4 games and started 2, and looked pretty good so far this year. He had arm surgery prior to last season, and he was really erratic last season, but he was starting to look better as the season went on. He seemed to have like a tendency to pitch about 4 good innings and then be subject to maybe one bad inning a game, but it was usually enough to torpedo his chances for a win. So the Indians called up rookie Vince Colbert from Wichita to take his place. The Indians bench has been depleted by all the injuries. They called up Lou Camilli also from Wichita. Their new top farm club. They cut their ties with Portland. Billy last year he got into 14 games. He went 1 for 32 on the season, but they didn't think that that was any kind of real show of what his abilities were because he's been a good hitter in both Portland and Wichita. Dean's batting hasn't been bad so far this year. Eddie Leon, rookie from last year, he's been solid with hitting. Another rookie, Roy Foster, he's been solid. He's he got off to a great start. He had his batting average up to 455. And after the games with Kansas City, he's hitting 346, 4 home runs. They got Greg Nettles. He's playing an outstanding third base. His batting average is a little low still, but Alvin Dark said he's going to stick with him, and he's got a good batting eye. Young catcher Ray Fosse, he's having an excellent start to his season. Duke Sims, the other catcher, who right now is mainly playing first base, is having a nice season as a power hitter so far. And they Larry Brown off the bench is doing the job. Vern Fuller off the base, he injured his knee in spring training, and he's still not real healthy. But they've had to plug him in several times because of the guys who are out. And Luke Klimchak, he's been plugged in at both first base and second base. They also have rookie Ted Ford, who's been playing more than they anticipated. And he's doing the job. They're happy about his production. Pitching's been a bit of an issue. As I mentioned before, Sam McDowell, he'll have like he's had 7 starts. He's pitched 5 complete games. He he'll have one good start, one bad start. He's been pretty erratic. Barry Moore, on the other hand, who he came over from Washington. He's doing some good pitching. Rich Hand, who a rookie, he's pitching well. Rookie Phil Hennigan is pitching real well out of the bullpen. The rest of the pitchers right now, Mike Paul, Bob Miller, Dick Ellsworth, and Dennis Higgins, none of them are pitching particularly well. Vince Colbert hasn't had a chance to pitch yet. But Cleveland, some people, they're talking like, wow, they beat Washington. They beat Chicago. They beat Kansas City. That's true, but in my opinion, at least, a win is a win. And right now, they're playing about the opposite of how they were last year. Yeah, they skipped past Boston and they're in second place. And right now, Washington and Detroit look like they're the team struggling in the Eastern Division. Let's see. Yeah, Cleveland swept the White Sox and the Tigers at Cleveland Stadium. And yeah, they have Dean Chance, who they took a shot at, and he's pitching well. In fact, he pitched on Sunday in Kansas City. 7 innings, gave up 4 hits, no runs. Cleveland won that game 3-0, or 3-1 rather. I'm sorry, which was a sweep of Kansas City, which surprised me a little bit because, like I said earlier, Cleveland historically has played bad in Kansas City. I never really understood it, but they never played well there. Going to shift now to the Cleveland Browns. The upcoming 1970 season will show a big shift with the Browns moving to the American Football Conference, which means that they're going to have 9 games against teams that they've never faced before from the old AFL. They will have 2 games against Cincinnati, obviously, 2 games against Houston, and they will play the Jets in Cleveland, at Miami, San Diego in Cleveland, at Oakland, at Houston, and at Denver. And against NFC teams, they'll be taking it going to San Francisco. They'll have it home and away with Pittsburgh, Detroit, and Cleveland, and Dallas and Cleveland. The big story in Cleveland that's got a lot of fans buzzing and not in a very particular positive way was trading Paul Warfield to the Dolphins. Cleveland's quarterback, Bill Nelson, last year started off the season on an excellent footing, but in the second half, his knees are just really starting to give out. They traded Warfield to the Dolphins for the third round pick in the draft to get a quarterback. Warfield had been with the Browns since 1964. Caught 277 passes out of 514 attempts. Got 242 first downs and 42 touchdowns. Warfield's already on the record as not wanting to go to Miami, but Cleveland figured they desperately needed a quarterback. It, Nelson's performance declined somewhat in 1969. He played more in 69 than he had in 68, and he threw 25 interceptions last year, along with 27 touchdowns. Had a pass completion rate that went down from 55% to roughly 51%. So with the third pick, the Browns chose Peru phenom Mike Phipps, who ironically had replaced Bob Greasy at Purdue. Greasy's now with the Dolphins. So Phipps will be under a lot of scrutiny in the city. He was the second quarterback drafted, in fact. Terry Bradshaw of Louisiana Tech was the first quarterback drafted. He was the number one pick. In the first two rounds, the Browns drafted Mike Phipps of Purdue, Bob McKay of Texas, Turkey Jones of Tennessee State, and Jerry Shirk of Oklahoma State. They also picked up a few more Big Ten athletes, like Seelig of Iowa, Craig Wazinski of Michigan State, William Anchar also of Purdue. And their exhibition schedule starts on August 8th in Los Angeles. This year, football fans are also a little unhappy with reports that there's going to be less football on TV since the NFL and AFL won't be competing. But the NFL has scheduled Monday night games for each week of the season. These will be broadcast on ABC, not NBC, which will carry the AFC, and CBS, which carry the NFC. And the Browns are scheduled playing the first Monday night game with the Jets coming to Cleveland. That'll be a rematch of Super Bowl III, which the Browns won. And the Browns will also play on Monday night in Week 12 at the Astrodome against the Oilers. They'll also see Paul Brown returning to Cleveland Stadium as coach of the Bengals on October 11th. Reportedly, Paul Brown wanted the Browns to be the Bengals' first opponent at the new Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, which is scheduled to open at the end of June. But they got so many orders for season tickets that he dropped that request. I could talk a few minutes about the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were awarded to the NBA. They'll be playing down at the Cleveland Arena, which was a little surprising that the NBA was willing to have a team play there because reportedly Cleveland was left out of the NHL expansion because the NHL thought that the arena was too small. Cleveland fans were actually fairly well acquainted with the NBA because the Cincinnati Royals have been playing games there for several years. In fact, I think they had about 3 years where they played each NBA team at least once there. And then last year, after it was noted that Cleveland would be getting a team, Cincinnati cut down their Cleveland appearances to just four. And reportedly, they're not all that happy in Cincinnati about this because Cleveland was actually a pretty good draw for them, or the games in Cleveland. And it's reported that the Cincinnati owners are looking to sell and not necessarily to an ownership group that's in Cincinnati. The NBA draft, the Cavs had the seventh pick. They drafted John Johnson of Iowa. Then they drafted Dave Sorensen from Ohio State. They also drafted Joe Cook from Indiana, Ken Johnson from Indiana. And the expansion draft will be soon, where they'll be able to choose 11 players from other NBA teams. Yeah, it's difficult to say whether having a full time basketball team in Cleveland will be a big success, but Nick Maletti, who's the owner of the Cleveland Arena and of the Cleveland Barons in the American Hockey League, seems to think so, and he's trying to put together funding and find a site for a new arena. So we'll see what happens with that. I guess that's all I have to say right now, and thank you for listening.